Today's video has been sponsored by Ubisoft. I'm always hesitant when I approach movies and games that are set in some kind of mythological world, because a lot of the time it feels like an afterthought. It's also rather difficult to find the balance between paying homage to the original stories and still branching out and creating something new. When Ubisoft approached me about discussing Immortals Fenyx Rising, a new action-adventure game rooted in Greek mythology, I was definitely intrigued. I had no idea what to expect, but I was more than happy to give it a try. After playing Fenyx Rising for about 5 minutes, it was pretty clear this was a game and story designed with Greek mythology at its very core. If I'm being honest, I thought I'd find myself nitpicking the narrative and the way the characters were portrayed, but there wasn't much I disagreed with. It was definitely an encouraging start knowing that the team behind this clearly cared about the source material. For those intrigued about the story, I'll give you a brief summary without any major spoilers. The game begins with a monologue from Typhon, who tells us he's going to destroy the gods and start a new world. Those of you familiar with Greek mythology will know Typhon is the closest the Greek gods ever came to being destroyed, along with some other attempts from the giants and the Titans. So having Typhon as the big bad villain of this game is something I wholeheartedly agree with. You'd need an antagonist the gods are scared of, and that can only really be Typhon. Having defeated the gods and heroes, there is no hope left, as even the humans have all been turned to stone. Barring one, of course, who washes up on the shores of the Golden Isle. It is down to you, Fenyx, to reunite the gods and stop Typhon destroying everything. One of my favourite parts of the game that does bring up multiple points of discussion is the relationship between Zeus and Prometheus, who serve as the primary narrators of the game, as well as helping to establish an overall tone. Zeus and Prometheus have somewhat of a troubled history, which began with Prometheus stealing fire and giving it to mankind. Zeus, not being a big fan of humans, then chains him to a mountain where an eagle would swoop down and devour his liver, only for it to regenerate in the evening and the process to repeat itself. Given the situation, you'd expect a rather large amount of animosity between them, but that's not really the case, as both characters offer comedic relief as well as guiding you through an unknown world. After Typhon's monologue, we're taken to the mountain where Prometheus is chained, and he tells Zeus of a prophecy. A human mortal will unite the gods and defeat Typhon. Zeus naturally scoffs at the idea, and even wagers Prometheus his freedom if he is correct. And so begins the split narration. As you journey through the Golden Isle, Prometheus narrates the bulk of your story, and Zeus just does Zeus things. Most of the time he interrupts to be an a-hole, which is a very Zeus thing to do. The two do a very good job explaining stories that relate to whatever quest you may be doing, but it doesn't feel like a constant dump of exposition. Sometimes they'll start an explanation only to go completely off topic and start arguing with each other over something ridiculously petty. I really enjoyed the constant banter between the two. It gave the game its own charm, and it showed a good deal of self-awareness. Because trying to make a game based on Greek mythology in a completely serious tone with no humour is just the wrong approach considering how weird and wacky Greek mythology can be at times. It may work for a game such as God of War, where the gods exist just to be butchered by Kratos, so there's no need to get to know them. Here, however, Fenyx and the gods are on the same side, so you need the gods to be relatable or have some redeeming qualities. Otherwise, you'll just end up rooting for Typhon. To say that Immortals is full of jokes and puns is the understatement of the year. You can't go 5 minutes without someone making a joke or just doing something comical. A good portion of this comes from Zeus and Hermes, who for me are big highlights of this game. Some people may not like that approach, but I do. Having a witty and light-hearted tone suits the personalities of most of the gods. It also gives the game a more fun and chill vibe, as opposed to being stressed and anxious all the time, which isn't what I personally want from a game that offers so much story and exploration. The exploration and world design is something that really surprised me. When you hear a game tell you it's open world, normally that just means vast open spaces that all look the same and often feel quite empty. Fenyx Rising doesn't try to make its world feel vast for the sake of it. Instead, it's quite a compact map. It's not particularly large in comparison to other games, but it is absolutely jam-packed with things to do. At no point did I find myself running from A to B for hours with nothing to do along the way. There is always some kind of creature, collectible, quest, or event to take part in. Each zone has its own distinct look, with 4 of them representing a specific deity: Athena, Ares, Aphrodite, and Hephaestus. You can walk into a zone and within a few seconds of just looking around, you can tell which god's domain you've entered. The game also doesn't hold your hand. When you enter a zone, there is no quest log. You have to find the point of interest and solve any puzzles along the way by yourself, as it should be. Also, I haven't mentioned it yet, but the game just looks really nice, which makes you want to explore. It definitely has that stylized Breath of the Wild feel to it, while still maintaining its own vibrant aesthetic. Moving swiftly on to the enemies and mythical creatures you encounter. As Typhon has already ravaged much of the world, most of the human soldiers you encounter have been brought back as shades, and this is the case for the Greek heroes also. You encounter the likes of Achilles, Heracles, Odysseus, and Atalanta, but they aren't quite themselves, and it's up to you to free them from Typhon's hold. As for mythical creatures, if it exists in Greek mythology, then it's probably in this game. I've come across everything from harpies, gorgons, cyclopes, griffins, minotaurs, chimera, hydra, hecatoncres, and even Cerberus. Each creature has their own unique feel and characteristics. Each time I heard a high-pitched shriek, I knew it could only be a wretched harpy, and I took way too much pleasure in guiding my arrows into their disgusting bird face before they were plucked out the sky. Not a huge fan of harpies if you didn't guess. The combat system in this game as a whole isn't very hard and it's pretty fun. Once you've mastered most of the mechanics, you can deal with these creatures pretty easily. That being said, when you've just started, some of these creatures can be daunting on the harder difficulties. I remember leaving the tutorial portion of the game and picking a fight with the first Cyclops I found, which wasn't the best choice considering I had no idea what I was doing. After being thrown around with a slither of HP and no pomegranates to heal, I had only one choice. I had to find the cheesiest way to kill this Cyclops, because I was not about to be bested by the first one-eyed big dum-dum I came across. So I did what any fearless warrior would do in my position. I hid behind a rock and fired arrows at him for about 5 to 10 minutes until he died. I don't know if the AI in this case was just bad, or if the Cyclops AI is designed to be dumb, but it felt like an authentic encounter with a Cyclops. This is something that happens throughout the game. Your interactions with creatures, gods, and even the environment just have an authentic feel. Immortals certainly puts its own spin on Greek mythology, but never does it feel as if these stories have been diluted or changed to fit the narrative. It's clear the narrative was built around these stories and legends. Whether you're well versed in Greek mythology or someone who knows very little, Immortals does its best to appease both audiences. Although I didn't necessarily learn anything new, that didn't really affect my enjoyment of the game. I constantly found myself listening for references and searching for Easter eggs, which there is no shortage of in this game. On the opposite end, if you're someone who knows very little, by the end of the game that won't be the case anymore. As far as gateways into Greek mythology go, Fenyx Rising does a really good job. If you enjoy Greek mythology and you just want to relax and play something fun that has a touch of nostalgia, then I recommend Fenyx Rising. If you've always wanted to dive into the world of Greek mythology but didn't know where to start, then give Fenyx Rising a try.